In this video, we're going to learn how to make simple bar graphs using Excel. This is not going to explore how to add standard error bars, but we will talk about the types of data that you might have that may warrant standard error bars. So the first thing, and probably the most important thing when it comes to making any type of graph in Excel, is all about data management and also just data configuration, or just really how is your data put together, because Excel will actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So you might see on my screen I've got 4 different data sets. They're pretty similar, but they're organized in different ways. So ignore the bottom for a second and let's just focus on the top. Let's say I asked a question to students in my class about what pets they have, and here is what I got. There was 13 dogs, 8 cats, 35 fish, and 2 rabbits. Now you can organize this in 2 different ways. You can organize it like you see here, or you can organize it like you see on the right-hand side. Now Excel is going to treat this the exact same way. But I will say that when you get into more complicated graphs or data analysis in general, usually it's a better rule of thumb to have your data organized in columns like you see on the right-hand side. You also want to keep all your data together. And so what I mean by that is, let's say I had my data look like this, and it was actually, these were like the individual students. Let's make sure things make sense. 0, 0, 0, 0. Well, someone had 34 fish, 0, 0, 0. I don't know. Again, I'm making this up. But let's say we surveyed 5 students, and so I'm just like doing some quick mental math just to make sure my numbers make sense. Cool. Okay. So let's say there were 5 students. You know, this student had 2 dogs, 3 cats, 1 fish, 2 rabbits. This student had 3, 4, 34, 0, etc. And then my sum is at the bottom. Well, you're going to want to graph the sum. Like, you don't want to have just all these individuals plotted individually. Like, we just care about the total number. Now the thing is like your total numbers, the things you want to graph, are literally far away from the labels. So you want to keep your labels and your data together. It's not impossible if you don't, but it's going to be harder and honestly just a bigger pain. So I'm going to delete all that data. I only care about my totals. Now let's say you have all this data. The other thing you could do is I could copy my labels and copy my data. So I still have all my raw data, but I've just put it elsewhere so that I could have my data consolidated. Okay, but I don't want to be this far off the screen, so I'll put it here. So simply, the next step is super easy. All you have to do is highlight all the things that you want to go on your graph. So I want these labels to go in my graph. I want the data to go into my graph. And I'm going to click Insert. And then you'll notice they refer to them as charts. There's all sorts of charts here. You know, because you know that categorical and continuous data should be graphed using a bar graph. I'm going to click the column chart or bar chart. These all mean the same thing. And it gives me a whole bunch of different options. And honestly, the only option that you're going to use for like legit professional looking graphs should always be the first one. There are instances for the other 2, but most of your data, you're not going to want that. The 3D types, the different bar types, like in science at least, you don't use those. These are used by like media outlets. There's not anything particularly wrong with them, but the most important thing is the simpler it is, the better, because that means your audience is more likely to interpret your graph correctly. So I chose the first one, and I'm just going to move it around real quick. And look, again, it's already done that heavy lifting for me. Here you see my 4 different categories, you see my y-axis, and you see some different elements. Now, I'm not going to go through every single thing, but just some things to show you. So one thing you might have noticed is it's all in gray. So I have my chart highlighted. I'm going to click on Home, and I'm going to change the font color to black. You might also notice there's no y-axis label, and that's really important to have for any chart. So with my graph highlighted, I have these two tabs up here, chart design and format. In chart design, I can add a chart element, and you can see there's a lot of different things here, but we want to do a primary vertical or a y-axis label. And this would be number of animals. You can also click on an axis. You may have noticed that there's no actual line on the y-axis. So I'm going to click on the axis, so in this case all the numbers, and if I click on format, I can change things like the line. Oh, that looks horrible. So obviously that is not the right one. Let's try shape outline. What does that do? Okay, that looks a lot better. You can also double click anything in here, and it also opens a format bar on the right. These are things like tick marks, which if we look on our graph, we don't even have tick marks. So I might go to, let's see, tick marks, and you can see major, minor was none, so I'm going to do outside. And so you can see how that's changing. Again, I'm not going to talk about all the different things, but if there's something you like or don't like, try double clicking it. Maybe you hate these grid lines. Well, I clicked them, now I'm going to click delete. Right? Maybe you want to add a y-axis line. So lots of different things that you can do to customize your graph. Briefly, I'm just going to show you that if I had organized my data in columns like this, and I went to insert, column, 2D column, it literally gave me the same exact thing. But again, my data was right next to each other. Let's say you have a slightly more complicated bar graph. You notice that maybe I'm teaching two different classes, and so I surveyed two different groups of students. Here's one class and the results, and here's a second class and the results. Again, all my data is right next to each other. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. So I'm going to highlight everything, my labels for my two groups, as well as my labels across the top. Insert, graph, and Excel's like, I got this. And you notice that, again, it gave me my different animals at the bottom, and it gave me in different colors the different classes. Sometimes Excel can do weird things that you're like, I want you to do this, but you are doing something completely different. If that happens, still stick with that first step. Get your data organized, highlight your data, insert a graph. You can right-click on the graph and click Select Data. And when you do this, what you'll see is a way to edit the series. So let's say it was putting this. Here we go. Cats and dogs on each side. So here's class 1. Here's the animals. Class 2. Here's the animals. This is really hard to compare. So you could try switching row and column. You could automatically add different individual labels, individual data sets. So don't think all hope is lost if something weird happens. And that's about it. Like I said, there's a lot more to explore, especially for those individual colors and axes lines and titles, but it works the same no matter what. And the easiest thing I think to do is just to double click on something. You want to change these bars? All right, double click on them. And here's all your different options of things you can do with those bars. All right, good luck.